I have to say now that David Smith's on the board, they must have something, because he's not exactly an innocent when it comes to business. But before that, I would say that the business acumen in the boardroom at Celtic Park was not very good, practically nil if you like. But football's a funny thing. There's no guarantee that even with David Smith being there, an experienced businessman, a wheeler and dealer, there's no guarantee that he'll do that in the football world, because it's strange. There's so many variables, and at the end of it, you're always dependent on what your team does.
Fans off to see if their team can do the business against Partick Thistle in the first home game with Lou Macari. But is a new manager enough?
An injection of hard cash is what is needed. It's been proved Liam Brady had to sell players before he was able to buy players, and Lou Macari has been told the exact same thing. There is no hard cash for him to spend to extend his pool of players.
Our directors are sitting there taking money out of the club, putting nothing into it out of their own pocket, and they're looking for a fairy to come along with a magic wand. And this just don't happen in the present day.
But it's a grand old team to play for, and it's a grand old team to see. And if you know the history...
Today, the grand old team stands at the crossroads. By next season, its time run out. A takeover team waits in the dugout with plans to redevelop Celtic Park. An extraordinary general meeting of Celtic shareholders will decide whether they take control. The glory days can return, say the challengers, with a hard-headed businessman in charge.
I'm not a Santa Claus. I'm an investor, and I expect to get my money back eventually. This is not a donation. I think Celtic can be made into not only a successful football team, but a successful business. My plan is to raise and inject £17.9 million into Celtic Football Club. Use the money as a platform to invest a total from including from other sources of in excess of £35 million towards redeveloping the park, rebuilding the business, solving the financial problems, and improving the side.
In your view, is there an alternative?
I don't. There's an alternative which could be a declining, tiny, debt-ridden soccer club with a problem, without a stadium, and with players leaving, and so on and so on. And we've seen the 5 years what's gone on. Celtic continuously dealing from weakness, whether it's selling players in a fire sale, running after a manager and paying any price, who knows? But all the other things they've been doing is not from a position of strength. And I think the losses they've sustained over the last 3 years, which are over £5 million, show that they're continuously getting weaker. And let me say another thing. The people who are the directors now say they're only trustees. They're only, custodians. They're not there for personal benefit. Fine. I'm saying, right, well, let's get the best thing for Celtic Football Club, because that's what it comes down to. What is the best for Celtic Football Club?
The view of the so-called rebels, rejected by the board. The rival New Deal plan from the Celtic Old Guard amounts to no less than the provision of a brand new super stadium at Cambuslang, at no cost to the club, allegedly a prototype for football's future.
We're inventing the wheel. Nobody has ever gone out and put together a series of debt-free stadia and developed a network of debt-free stadia across a single country before. It's not just Celtic's ground. I have to present this. This is a multi-purpose facility for Glasgow Cambuslang, of which Celtic is the anchor tenant. There's a lot more going to be going on at this facility than Celtic Football Club.
Celtic Football Club has problems. A massive overdraft, no trophies in 4 years, disgruntled fans staying away. But with an extraordinary general meeting due on the 26th of this month, the Celtic board has been drip-feeding good news to the fans. The Lou Macari signing, runs the story, will lead to on-field success and the triumphal return of fans through the turnstiles.
If you look at the attendance figures for recent games, you'll see that there is a boycott going on. Not an organised boycott, but there are 10, 12, maybe up to 20,000 fans out there who do not go to the football, who do not go to watch Celtic on a Saturday anymore. They have found something else to do, and many of them will tell you that they will not go back to see Celtic as long as the Celtic board, as it's presently constituted, remains.
The fans feel outraged and ill-used by the board and plan more pressure. plotting how best to bring it about.
The very thought of a boycott, for me, I would never ever agree with it. Up until the last few years, things have really just got to a certain point where it's just come to a breaking point where really, I don't think the board understands just how sick and tired we are. We've followed them faithfully for years. We're not some hooligans from out with the club. We're season ticket holders. We love this club a lot more than they'll ever know. The question of a boycott is the final, the only thing we can really do to hurt them in the pocket. And if it comes to it, as a last resort, I would support it.
A boycott and Celtic's gate receipts will slide yet further. Can the bank maintain its stiff upper lip?
I found the bank stance quite amazing. I mean, I think that if you and I decided to open a business in Glasgow and we approached the leading bank and we said, oh, by the way, we haven't got a business plan and we haven't got any accounts and we haven't got any budgets and we haven't got any projections and we haven't got any forecasts, but could you please lend us £2 million? They would just laugh at us. But that was the situation that the Bank of Scotland were allowing Celtic to trade under.
Is the bank going to lend them more? I mean, the basic problem they have at the moment is that they have obviously pushed up the amount of money they're spending in wages, pushed up the amount of money they're spending on signing on fees and transfer fees to try and bring that success. They've been spending more, really, than probably they even, well, I'm sure they knew that they could strictly justify in terms of the turnover that they were actually getting.
I would suspect that Celtic are they've gone as far as they can with the current overdraft facility. And I think the banks have said to them, look, enough is enough. We've now got to start looking at ways of getting this money back.
Step forward Fergus McCann, Scots-born Canadian millionaire, and his right-hand man, Brian Dempsey.
You can go first because you're the leader.
McCann is pledging £10 million of his own cash to get control of the club and, he claims, save the day.
We've put together a plan which will generate the kind of cash that no British football club has ever seen before. It will also mean, obviously, there are going to have to be some changes. There's going to be some changes in the people running the club, and I expect it to be on a full-time basis. I'm not denying that. So now we've come to this point where there is a final meeting, a decision has to be made, yes to this capital, or no, up or down.
If the club sticks with the old regime, the future?
Well, it's a decision that they have to make, but they have to make that decision knowing there are two other bigger decision makers outside the room. One is the Bank of Scotland, who control all its assets, and the other is the supporters who control its entire income. They are the people who also will be making a decision, either to support the club or not, financially.
When Fergus McCann first approached Celtic's board, plan in hand, 5 years ago, they simply wrote him off.
They all said, oh no, just forget Fergus. Fergus is an eccentric. We know about Fergus, but just forget him. He's not a player in any of this. And here you are 5 years down the line, Fergus is a major player. But that, I think the arrogance of the Celtic board came through there. You know, when he said, forget him, he's not a player, you know, he's just an eccentric old man, we've ignored him.
Multi-millions notwithstanding, Fergus McCann fails to cut a fine figure for the fans. His offer for the club went in just after Celtic lost 1-0 to rivals Rangers. Superb timing, but he didn't know the game was on.
He comes here and it's the day after a major semi-final between the Old Firm and doesn't realise it's taking place. You know, things like that's not good. That upsets everybody on his side. It upsets the fans.
The board, though unwilling, can no longer ignore Fergus McCann, but will neither deal with him nor tell him why. They decline to be interviewed by Focal Point on the present crisis.
What we have to find out, and we've not been able to find out so far, what are the stumbling blocks? We've removed everything that we've seen. Now we don't see any more. Where are they? What are they?
Writ large in the mind of the Celtic board is the fact that the McCann rescue package comes with former Celtic director Brian Dempsey built in. Dempsey was mysteriously bundled off the board 3 years ago. Fellow director Michael Kelly was ecstatic.
There's too much bad blood coursing between Michael Kelly and Brian Dempsey. And I don't know if they can work together. Michael Kelly's already said he couldn't work with them. Too many bad things have happened between them. Too many words have been said. Now, the sad thing about this, of course, is that while they play these politics and there's all this dialogue behind the scenes and the club slides further down. And it's as though some people, there are not enough people on both sides too concerned about the supporters and all of this.
The ebullient Mr Dempsey was ousted from Celtic Park when the board there went sour on a proposal to move to Rob Royston. They had learned that Dempsey had bought himself a company, Nardlaw Limited, had bought for it land at Rob Royston adjacent to the proposed Celtic site, and all while still a director of Celtic.
That time, Nardlaw, you're now talking all about the same time, about August or September of about 1990, and the land started to be, Nardlaw acquired the land, and we then, I as Strathfield, acquired the shares in Nardlaw and in Bernlaw, which would then go into Celtic Football Club.
But in nowhere in company documents does it say that Celtic Football Club or any part of it is the beneficial owner of Nardlaw.
It may not be in company documents. I'll tell you something else that's not in company documents if you want to know. At a meeting in September, I told them at a board meeting that I would take the land, that we would give them the stadium site for nothing, and we'd split the profits if they were even scared to put any money in at any time into a completely no-lose situation. These things are never shown in the minutes because detailed minutes were not kept of meetings. And it is totally spurious at this stage, 3 years down the road, to say Brian Dempsey was in Rob Royston purely to make money. Totally spurious. And I challenge you to ask Mr McGinn, Mr Farrell, or even Kevin Kelly in these matters, because they knew exactly what was happening. And anything other than that is not true.
The first obligation is imposed by a specific statutory provision. And Mr Dempsey, to comply with that, should have declared his interest in Nardlaw and in the arrangement at the first board meeting at which the matter was discussed. That's a board meeting of Celtic.
Now, I've already asked you twice, and I think we got diverted onto other subjects, but I really would like to take an answer from you on this. And the question is, again, did you voluntarily declare to the board of Celtic your interest and that of the company Nardlaw in the land at Rob Royston?
I can't remember the exact details. I remember this, only this, that when that was put to me, I took legal counsel's opinion afterwards if I had conducted myself wrongly, and legal counsel advised me I hadn't.
What do you say to your accusers today?
Well, it was then, and it is now just total lies. And I wish somebody would come public and say very publicly that I was in here lining my pockets, trying to buy up land at the expense of Celtic, and rest assured, I will deal with it fully. And in dealing with it, I will cite the chairman, the vice chairman, the legal director, and other directors to say at any time where I had not conducted myself properly.
Given the embarrassment to Fergus McCann of Brian Dempsey's poor standing with the Parkhead board, why does the would-be Celtic boss have him on his team? A high-profile player for the McCann cause, but a major stumbling block with the Celtic board.
Fergus and Brian almost got together before in the past. But Fergus's ways were not Brian's ways, and Brian's ways were not Fergus's ways. But they each had something the other desired. Brian has a credibility. He's well liked by the fans, who still see him as the White Knight, although he hasn't done anything yet. Fergus has the money, and wasn't particularly liked by the fans. They are wary of Fergus. It's Fergus's attitude. It's his Canadian, North American business attitude, if you like. It doesn't come across well. It doesn't sit easily here. And Fergus, having the money, realised, I think, that he needed the credibility. Brian, having the credibility, needed the money. So, if you like, it was a marriage of convenience. Now they have the money and they have the credibility. Brian suddenly is wealthy, although it's not his, and Fergus has this instant credibility.
Crunch time for Fergus McCann is just 2 weeks away, when the extraordinary general meeting of Celtic shareholders will settle the club's future. McCann's chances of winning the day are apparently out the park. Celtic's rules lay down that of the club's 20,000 shares, 2/3, that's just over 13,000, must be voted for any change. And that's the rub for the rebels, because 5 of Celtic's 7 directors have formed a pact, always to vote as one. They hold 6,329 of the club shares and enjoy the proxy votes of hundreds more. On that basis alone, McCann's bid fails. Nor can individual pact members split from it. Trust among pact members is such that they have entered a legally binding contract through a company, Celtic Nominees Limited, which bars individual freedom of action. For the rebels, an apparently impregnable front.
The people who have drawn up this pact have to live with it, and it has a lot of repercussions which are negative as far as they're concerned. There's no question in my mind it's unethical. It's certainly an immoral thing to do. Directors have to be free to vote their votes and make decisions on the basis of what is best for the club.
The director's vision of what is best for the club is a new, no-cost super stadium away from the old ground to be built at Cambuslang. Celtic FC, the catalyst, with profits galore in the future. Round the stadium, claim the scheme's promoters, will rise an hotel, cinemas, bowling alleys, restaurants, and all things to all men leisure complex, with Celtic at the very heart of Cambuslang's Xanadu, and all at no cost to the club.
When I approached them about the need for a realistic commercial understanding, I found them very receptive. They couldn't have dominance and control. You know, if they couldn't put up the money, then obviously we had to negotiate an agreement that would make sense to them and to ourselves. And from that basis, I found them very receptive. They listened. They probably didn't understand initially, and I think as we spent more and more time discussing the ramifications of it all, we thrashed out, I think, a very, very effective agreement. What they need from me is to just get the thing to happen. So yes, we keep them informed to a degree, but not blow by blow, because it's really alien to them. I think they'll probably be more confused than they would, than I would be helpful in terms of telling them everything that we're doing, because that's really our responsibility.
Patrick Nally has set up a company to handle his various stadia interests. He calls it aptly Stradivarius. But he is not, he makes clear, in cash terms, an investor in the Celtic scheme.
I'm investing all my time and I'm investing all my expense and cost, yes, because Stradivarius has got 2 very lean years before we have any facilities and start making a return. So yes, my investment is pretty substantial, but the guarantee is being written by others.
Now, have you been able to find those people prepared to write that guarantee? Did you find them here in Scotland, in Glasgow, in Britain, or abroad?
No, I found them abroad. It's done through conventional banking people that have obviously fairly large groups of people that have funds, and those funds can be used to act as security. So it's a funding package with an international bank, which is the way that you would normally approach these things.
And where did you find your benefactors, so to speak?
By just going around, presenting the idea, and talking to some of the people that have done it for me before.
And where are they? Are they Swiss? Are they French?
Well, Swiss is in terms of where they're seated, where they all come from. It's unknown. It's a banking fund. It's a management of a banking fund that gets approached for lots of projects, and we're one, and they think ours is extremely attractive.
Patrick Nally, according to his CV, is the world of sport. Football, rugby, tennis and athletics, all at the highest international level. Celtic's directors are indeed playing in the First League with a sporting hero greater than any they are currently able to field at Parkhead. But throughout the world, scattered through Mr. Nally's sports-promoting career thicker than trophies at Parkhead, are disputes and court cases. In New York, former West Ham, Aston Villa and Welsh international footballer Philip Woosnam is suing Pasco Nally International, a firm with which Patrick Nally was connected, for $300 million, alleging fraud in a joint venture to market football in the US. The case before the federal court pulls no punches.
How do you feel about the civil action against you in New York, which alleges in effect that you are a racketeer?
Mr. Woosnam and Mr. Caspers. Very relaxed. My history again has shown that I've done a tremendous amount for soccer. I started with the United States Soccer Federation in '76 and did a good job in building soccer interest in the United States and helped, I think, in many ways to bring the World Cup there in 1994. The action has been taken by 2 very good friends of mine, Mr. Caspers and Mr. Woosnam.
Are they still good friends?
They're still extremely good friends, yes, and I wish them well because I think they've done a lot for the sport.
Do you not feel personally pained against an allegation or by an allegation which says, in effect, you know, under the RICO rules, if they find against you or against these companies, you are a racketeer?
I find it, the whole American law system, quite amusing and quite dramatic. But having been involved in other sort of high-profile court actions around sport, you know, sport attracts media, attracts attention, attracts great exciting things like racketeering. the fact that I know I'm not a racketeer and I know the people that were involved are not racketeers, then I suppose I'm sort of relaxed about it.
In the world of championship tennis too, Mr. Nally was out of court. That is, he settled out of court in an action brought by Texan multimillionaire Lamar Hunt in a dispute about sports promotion and profit.
The settlement was, again, it was exactly the same example of using the law. Lamar Hunt had a major battle with the International Tennis Federation and the MIPTC, the Men's Pro Council, back in whenever it was. And he basically was fighting for a restraint of trade, that he couldn't get his World Championship tennis to be run. They were stopping players, they were stopping officials, and as he had been, if you like, the architect of professional tennis, I think he felt aggrieved and he took it to court.
At the friendly games in New Zealand and in a soccer deal with a German company, relations became strained between Mr. Nally and his associates, who came away from sporting deals with him, which they claim were less than that. Meanwhile, New York looms.
When I first heard of the term racketeer, it just horrified the hell out of me. But of course, when you actually delve into it and understand what is being done, and people creating, if you like, through the media, and perhaps this is a reflection on the media, if somebody calls a company a racketeer, they're assuming that that company immediately will want to stop it, pay a large check, and get it all over and done with. Now, is that a responsible thing to say, then I'm being judged as a racketeer because somebody is using the media to, pan up, to blow up as much as they can a problem to get a financial settlement? I don't find in most people that I deal with, if they're responsible people, that they sit and discuss. If they have concerns, we discuss it, we review it, and we resolve it.
Until he actually brings together all this money and all the component parts and puts down the first brick at Cambuslang, you've got to doubt all these people. You're entitled to doubt all these people because we've waited so long. This is still no more than a dream. And if he comes up with the money, then I'll tell you that this is the most wonderful businessman and wheeler and dealer in the whole of the UK. But until he does that, you've got to hold judgment on him. And Superstadia and Celtic's directors.
The Celtic board have been showing us plans for new stadiums for the last 10 years or so, of one description or another, none of which has come to fruition. It's great to have plans, it's great to have drawings. I think what the supporters want to see is the bulldozers moving in.
Bulldozers for a new Celtic park, but when? If, as Patrick Nally claims, the £20 million foundation finance for Cambuslang is in place, why, given the baying fans and the pressing Mr. McCann, does the Celtic board not spread the good news, reveal where the money is to come from and when?
It will happen, and yes, obviously it will be very helpful to us and to the club to put all these lingering doubts down and that the thing is a reality, and it is a reality. But of course, what we can't do is force third parties that are taking substantial financial responsibilities to do it, to go at a speed that's being dictated perhaps because of some media attention.
Will we hear this month, do you think? Or?
In the month of November, yes, I think probably we will. Obviously, everybody would like to have heard it earlier, but yes, I think it'd be fairly easy for us to be able to get all those statements put out before the end of the month.
With Patrick Nally on the team, just how much better can life get at Paradise? Well, according to Mr. Nally, a share of the whole development's profits will go to Celtic Football Club as well.
In terms of percentages, I would think probably in the region of 30–40%, but that is a little detail that's still not all finally thrashed out. But they'll get a reasonable percentage of the profits from that facility, because of course they're also a catalyst to attract to that facility. So it's a very fair, very reasonable share of earnings.
In the no-money-needed world of Patrick Nally, where football clubs get no-cost stadia and as yet unnamed moneymen pledge their millions to make it happen, it comes as no surprise to discover that Mr. Nally, just like Celtic, will not have to put in a penny at Cambuslang. So what do he and his company get from the deal?
What I want is the keys of a multi-purpose stadium built to our specification handed over to me. So there will be a contractor that will have a fixed price design and build. The contractor will be the one concerned that the money's there, not Celtic, because that contractor's got to build it within that price. My interest is when he hands it over to me. My interest is going to be in 1996 when I can turn up for the opening ceremony.
Celtic's directors are committed to one course of action, to fight off Fergus McCann and face the future with their own bold vision at Cambuslang. But what if the moneymen fail to chip in their millions?
If Cambuslang doesn't get off the ground, Celtic will continue to go down because they will need more money to rebuild Parkhead, and they need money for players, and they can't do both, and I would suspect Celtic will continue on a downward spiral. I think then we would be facing the distinct possibility of this club sinking into a mediocrity from which they might never recover.
If the trophies and the glory days are ever to return to Parkhead, one thing is certain. It will need money, a great deal of it, to provide a fitting home for Celtic, put a winning team on the park. Canadian millionaire Fergus McCann says the board can't deliver.
They're not even paying their bills on time. Can't even handle that. They're having to sell players, you know, to pay for another player. They're up against the wall.
The board have said these people are not the right people for Celtic. Well, who is the right people for Celtic? An Arab sheikh comes along and puts in 40 million.
Not knowing Mr. McCann personally, he strikes me as being a resourceful man in more ways than one. I would be very surprised if he is approaching the EGM as a lost cause. I feel he may well have an ace or two up his sleeve.